Welcome to another episode of Monster Men.
Yeah.
That is very appropriate because today is an episode we've been talking about doing for a long time. It's finally time to salute the Universal Monsters.
These were the building blocks of who we are.
Yeah, this
Universal Monsters. That was everything when I was little.
These are monsters that even if you haven't seen the movies, you are aware of them.
Everybody knows these monsters. My kids knew these monsters when they were... now I think it's in the DNA.
It is. Well, it's the staples. Dracula, Frankenstein,
The Mummy.
Wolfman, and the Mummy.
Yeah.
And then Creature of the Black Lagoon and...
Which was the end.
That was the end.
Yeah. I actually have a chronology of when it started and when it ended. But because Creature from the Black Lagoon, right over here...
Or Gillman.
No offense to Gil, my friend.
Or my friend Chris Gilman.
That was in the 50s. I think it was 54. And that was like their last attempt to try and bring back the monster genre. And it did very well. I think they have like 3 or 4 sequels. Do you remember when we were kids, when you had to go get your 3D glasses from like 7-Eleven to go watch The Creature from the Black Lagoon?
Yep, on Channel 11.
Pix 11 in 3D.
And it didn't even work.
Here comes the harpoon. That was about it.
Revenge of the Creature was like the first one they did.
Oh my god, and all you got was a headache out of that.
So, the Universal Monsters, before we get into each movie, what is were they the first monsters that you got into, like movie-wise, or what?
Yeah, my father was good at giving me the basics. So, I think my first movies that I remember were Frankenstein and Dracula, and the big 4. And then all the rest that came after that. But we used to watch them on, what was the Creature Feature, I think used to put them on. PBS would do it too back in the day. And then the models.
The models. Well, I wanted to get that.
The big thing, the models.
For me, when I was younger, my first exposure to the Universal Monsters, as I've said before, was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So I saw that movie a bunch of times, and so there's Frankenstein. And I knew of the other movies, but like I saw Dracula with Christopher Lee first, because they showed that all the time.
Really?
On Channel 9. Then I finally got around to seeing, I saw pictures, I read about, you and me, we're always reading monsters.
Yeah.
So Dracula was a big part of my life, but the actual Dracula movie, I got a little bit older and I finally saw it at the library, or I hardly ever saw this movie on TV. I remember seeing Wolfman and Frankenstein, but I was still pretty young when I saw them, but I saw other versions of them first.
See, a big thing for me was Famous Monsters magazine, and they would still showcase all those monsters, so we'd make it a point to make sure that I had to see those when those movies came on.
And that's where these monsters are so iconic that even if you don't see the movie, they're part of your horror
If
DNA.
you haven't seen Dracula, you kind of understand what Dracula's all about.
Yeah. And you go back to the Aurora models. When we were kids, there were these models made by Aurora.
I wish I still had them.
And I saw a great documentary about Aurora models hosted by the Groovy Ghoul guy.
Oh.
Zachary.
Who was more model than man?
When we were kids, it was the Frankenstein, and he glows in the dark.
He glows in the dark, yep.
And all that. And they also had Godzilla and those.
Yep.
But those were so everything was magazines and books and
I had
models.
The 12-inch action figures of we got the Mummy over here, with they've kind of resurrected some of them. Everything you could find them everywhere when I was growing up. Not so much now. But when you and I were growing up, they were everywhere.
Yeah, and you think about it. How many kids now know who Frankenstein is, but have never seen a Frankenstein movie? Maybe they saw Young Frankenstein.
And how many people think the monster's name is Frankenstein?
Yeah.
That would be 98% of the world. And speaking of that, out of all of them, that's to me the best of them all, hands down.
The first one, Frankenstein?
The first Frankenstein with... Colin Clive was Dr. Frankenstein.
Now that's interesting because a lot of people feel Bride of Frankenstein's the better one.
I thought that was really good too. And if Young Frankenstein is a combination of both movies.
Well, and the third one, Son of Frankenstein, which is the unsung Frankenstein movie.
Yeah.
That's where the arm guy is and the darts.
Yeah.
If you watch I went back last year. Around Halloween time, we always go watch a lot of horror movies. So I always make it a point to go get a Universal. Last year it was Frankenstein. This year I did Dracula. I may even grab the Wolfman, just to make sure that I've seen it now more than 10 years apart. Whatever.
Yeah.
But when I was watching Frankenstein and Bride, I forgot how much of young Frankenstein. Then I went back and Son of Frankenstein, and I'm like, my God, even.
Yeah. Well, Mel did his homework before he made that movie.
And he shot them on the sets.
Now, can you name the very first Universal monster movie? I won't even. Can you name it and give me the date of the very first?
London After Midnight?
No. That's a good guess. It was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1913 was the very first Universal foray into horror and monsters.
Not Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive?
No, or Sister Jive or whatever. No. But they didn't really take off until 1923 with The Hunchback of Notre Dame and then The Phantom of the Opera.
What hump?
Wasn't it on your left side yesterday? Lon Chaney was the original, and they had big plans for Lon Chaney, and then he died in 1930 of lung cancer.
Great job, Lon.
Yeah, but then it gave birth to the other guys, to Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, who to me Karloff is hands down the best. That's ever.
Bela Lugosi, who we'll get to with Dracula. Did you know he was the first Igor?
Was he?
Son of Frankenstein.
I didn't realize that.
And I don't want to act smart. I saw it yesterday on a video I was watching.
And I had a bit of trivia about him because he plays a character named Bella in The Wolfman. So he got around.
And when you're watching Twilight and you wonder why the girl's name is Bella.
Bella! Nobody gives two F's for Bella.
You're putting me through hell.
Ed Wood reference there. But I thought Dracula, was kind of, even when I watch it now, I never really kind of got Dracula.
I was always a big Dracula fan, but not necessarily of the Bela Lugosi, but just the whole vampires and all that.
I thought Bella's was a little corny.
Right.
You know,
the thing I forgot, and this is what's fun about watching them every few years. Yeah.
Am I hypnotizing anybody?
He was, that Dracula was all about hypnosis, which if you go to the Abbott and Costello, again, he's all hypnosis. But I forget, because so many adaptations of Dracula now focus on Jonathan Harker, I forgot how much Renfield is part of the story.
Renfield's awesome.
Yeah, like he's the one who goes to the castle in the first one. And I've seen so many versions where they skip that and they make it's Jonathan Harker.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, and then Renfield was actually a great character. Like he's a nut job.
A bug-eating lunatic. I mean, come on.
Although, if you watch the Louis Jourdan PBS Dracula, the guy who plays Renfield in that is awesome.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's a great character to play. I would love to do a Renfield. Just act nuts. I think Brother Theodore did it, or Klaus Kinski. One of those two, I think, did a version of Renfield for some version of Dracula somewhere in the 70s. That was hair-raisingly scary.
Tom Waits was Renfield in the
Tom
Coppola.
Basta. Here's one that people forget. The Invisible Man.
Yes.
One of the Universal monsters. This is very hard to make an action figure for the Invisible Man. And if you're going to do it, he kind of looks like the Mummy, where he's got to be
wrapped up
Vincent
Price,
right? The original Mummy? No. The original...
Oh, no, you know what? The Invisible Man, the voice in Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. At the end is, allow me to introduce myself. I'm the Invisible Man. It's Vincent Price. You're right, though. It wasn't him.
Yeah, the original wasn't him. James Whale, who directed Frankenstein, also directed The Invisible Man. And if you watch The Invisible Man now, that is better than most of the other ones. Because it's a great story and great pacing. And the beauty of all these movies is, go out and watch them for like an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's the...
brevity.
I watched Dracula with... it had like a pop-up video kind of feature on it where they would flash little facts about the movie.
Right.
So if you feel like some of these movies... what killed me as a kid was... As a kid, the Universal movies were slower.
They're slower?
They're black and white.
But they're not long.
They're not long, but like, you know, you put on, not that the Hammer movies didn't have their slow parts, but
Yeah.
the scary parts were in color with blood. So as a 8-year-old, you're like,
Right. Well, I can see
whereas,
that.
But having seen it a number of times, it was kind of interesting. You just have the little facts. And Dracula was filmed in Spanish at the same time, or right before.
Yep.
So there was a lot of overlay and
Have you ever seen the
stories.
Spanish version?
I actually have not.
I have it back there somewhere.
Some
the
people say
Spanish
it's better.
version. It's longer. I don't know if it's necessarily better, but it's a little bit longer.
It's funny when you watch it now because so much of everything's off screen. Like Dracula gets staked off screen.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you can't. Well, they say people were fainting when they saw Frankenstein's face and the Wolfman and stuff like that. It was a different era because you didn't see that kind of stuff. Nowadays, forget it.
You watch Frankenstein, I gotta say one thing. It's a great movie, but Dr. Frankenstein's voice was grating on me, buddy.
That's what made him great. I thought you could hear the madness in his voice. It was perfect movie for the deaf. Well, also remember, this is for the deaf.
Perfect movie for the deaf.
Because the vocalization was great for deaf people. Well, I don't even know where I was going now. Now I completely derailed myself. Forget it.
All right. Well, what about
Forget
the
it.
Wolfman?
The Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr., who resurrected the Chaney name.
So when you hear Werewolves of London and they're saying I saw Lon Chaney Jr. walking with the Queen.
The Wolfman's a sad one. Wolfman isn't necessarily scary, but it's kind of sad for the guy. Poor, Talbot? Larry Talbot.
Larry Talbot.
Yeah, I always felt bad for him. And Lon Chaney Jr. He's just got that sad face, and I always think of him of Mice and Men. Yeah. When am I going to pet the rabbits, George? And Wolfman, when am I going to eat the rabbits, George? The other one it's a slow one is The Mummy, but I really like The Mummy. I've always been into it, like Egyptology and stuff like that. So right off the bat, I like The Mummy. And I'm watching movies. Jack's watching movies every day in October, and I base my ratings on 9/10 leaves, which if you're a Mummy fan, you'll know what that's about. So movies I rate movies on blank out of 9/10 leaves. So if you come to Monster Men, our Facebook page,
that brings me to a good point. To take a quick break in the conversation. Please go like us on Facebook and don't be afraid to join in the conversation. So if I know there's Universal fans out there, tell us what we missed, tell us what you think. Tell us the story of the first monster that affected you from the monster. Did you have an Aurora model? Do you still have one? Send us a picture.
Oh God, that would be awesome if you did.
And we can also follow us on Twitter. Our YouTube channel is MonsterMan13. And every single episode of Monster Men is on both our blogs, but HunterShade.com. It's got a nice tab right at the top, Monster Men, and you can catch up on all our episodes.
They're all there.
That's our shameless plug. Back to Universal Monsters.
Yeah. Well, once you get through those and then you end up at Creatures in the Black Lagoon, you've hit them. But those are all iconic figures in film.
They just re-released and remastered all of these movies. It's a big box set now. It's
really?
Like $100 or something like that.
Ooh.
And I saw the Dracula. They did this with Jaws too, where they went back and restored them so you could see the before and after.
Right.
And it's amazing how clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading a review of it, and somebody actually said it's almost too good because you can actually see like the sets in Frankenstein and some of it. How it's just like a.
And to me, I've always been that way with horror movies. Horror movies can't be too slick. The slicker they are, the crappier they are. Because there's got to be a graininess, not just to the what you see, but to what you feel in a horror movie. So I think cleaning things up, not necessary. I like to hear the pop and the scratches in the audio track, and I like to see little bubbles and stuff that pop up in these old prints. Whereas I don't know. For me, that's the best way to watch these movies.
Well, it's very interesting because when you talk to people about who's a horror fan, and like you and me, like, oh, I'm watching horror movies because it's October. When you watch Dracula or The Wolfman or The Mummy,
mm-hmm.
then you compare that to I just watched I Spit on Your Grave, or
Last House on the Left.
Yeah, like the term horror movie can go from Monster Squad, which is an homage to all of these.
And they were all at a recent trade show that I went to.
Actually, they're remaking that movie too.
Of course, why not? They remake everything.
But it's funny, like as Monster Men, people who love this stuff, we fluctuate. So it's funny when we go from watching Wolfman and then like Megan is missing.
You got to satisfy all your horror urges because horror is a giant bucket with little compartments everywhere.
Leaking blood.
And to me, the biggest compartment in there are the Universal monsters. They'll always be my favorites.
Have you ever dressed like any of these Universal monsters?
I think I was the Wolfman. When I don't show up to class, I was the Invisible Boy.
Like I said,
I never tried Frankenstein.
My friend Lou has the best Frankenstein costume. If I can get him to send me a picture, I'll put it up for this. Last year's Halloween episode, I showed me and my friends as Dracula, the Mummy, Wolfman, and the ghost that looked like a nun. But I've dressed up. I was Dracula in a fun house up in Massachusetts, like a real haunted house that people paid to go through.
Right.
And I had like a full professional makeup and a real cloak and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it was before digital cameras and all that. And the gag was I was up on top of the stairs with this rope harness on.
Right.
And people would come into the room, and I would have to make dumb jokes like, I like my steak medium well, just dumb vampire jokes.
And were you saying it like Bella?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Again, the iconic, Dracula in the book had a mustache and was,
yeah.
Bela Lugosi's the one who got the dinner outfit going. But anyway, people would look up at me, and then as they got close, I would jump. And so they would think I'm going to land on them, but
right.
The rope would catch me. So I'd actually be in midair, stopped, and then Igor, who had like a knife and a scary mask,
right.
would run out from under the stairs. So they're looking up at me like, oh my God, and then he would come this way and, Rah! And got him. I loved being dressed like Dracula and all that, except I did not take that gig anymore because the next day I had rope burns.
Oh. I bet that never happened to Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
Great voice. Want to do a comic book review?
Let's do the comic book update.
All right. In keeping with this, I bought this at Chiller Theater in New Jersey a year or two ago. It's The Trapdoor Maker. It's a graphic comic that is the prequel to Phantom of the Opera.
Oh.
So the guy who becomes the Phantom, he's kind of like this traveling magician. Black and white, for some reason with me with comics, I love black and white comics. The art's pretty funny. The story's really good. So if you're into the Universal Monsters, this is a great graphic comic to pick up. It's from...
Nice pick.
Neckbolt Publishing. Come on. That's awesome. And this is my autograph copy, and he did a little drawing in it too.
Sweet.
Yeah, so this is awesome. So pick that up when you get a chance.
The Trapdoor Maker. Excellent. All right. That's the first of what will probably be many references to the Universal Monsters.
But at least we dedicated a show to it finally.
Yeah, finally.
We love them.
All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time at
Monster Men.
Grr, arg.